Good morning, ladies and gents. This week is our final story for close reading before the state assessment. We're going to look at the following essential questions. Number 4, what is literary text really about? And number 5, how does interaction with text provoke thinking and response? As we close read for the text Uprising today, we're going to be close reading it by reading it 3 different times. First, for what the text says. Second, for how the text says it. And last, for why the text matters. As you read through the excerpt today, for the first reading of the excerpt, when you read for what the text says, you're going to be reading through a few different excerpts that are not back-to-back from the Flesh and Blood So Cheap text, which was nonfiction, as well as from the story of the Triangle Factory, which was nonfiction. And then you're going to be reading through 3 different paragraphs from Uprising, that fictional text about the same fire that we just finished. Reading through the first time, you're going to be reading through for phase 1 for what the text is about and create an objective summary of each paragraph. As you create an objective summary, we are reading for learning target number 5 to create an objective summary of the text. Remember, as we create an objective summary of the text, you're doing facts only. You want to make sure that for the nonfiction, you're looking at the beginning, middle, and end of each of those little parts. For the fictional text, you want to include the important aspects of the conflict in which those plot elements are involved for each of those sections I give you for each character. And that would finish your first read. Remember, no quotations in a summary. It should all be in your words. In the second reading of the text, you're going to read through for how the text says it. You'll be rereading the section from Flesh and Blood So Cheap, the story of the Triangle Factory fire, and then from our new fictional text, Uprising, for what the text is about. As we read through for what the text is about, we're going to reread it for how does the characterization of Yetta, Jane, and Bella affect the plot of the passage. As we read through for this time, we are looking for learning target number 6 to analyze how particular elements of the story interact with other elements of the story. In this case, how characterization impacts the plot. Remember, characterization is looking at the characters, their personality, their feelings, their emotions, and kind of determining how their personality, their feelings, and emotions do impact what happens throughout the plot, which is those elements that surround the conflict: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, and how these characters impact that sequence of events for the story. As you read for the second phase, you will have to create a claim to answer that question as you begin your paragraph. When we do that, we're looking at learning target number 2 to make a claim in the form of an inference, conclusion, or generalization drawn from the text. Once you make your claim, you're going to support your claim with evidence from the text to support your response. Please make sure your evidence for this one is focused only on the fictional Uprising section and not the other section, which is those non-fictional pieces. And please provide evidence for each of the characters as you answer this question. And so in phase 2, I want you to begin your claim by using the following sentence. Yetta, Jane, and Bella's blank, so pick a personality trait about them, helps what? How does that help the plot overall? You may answer this question in 2 different ways, which it says right there. You could either pick like one personality trait you see common within all 3 of them, one personality trait that kind of is something you notice all 3 of them have in that moment, or you could do each of them separate. But within that opening statement, I do want you to provide with an evidence for each of these girls that showcases how that personality traits in action and how it's helping to really impact the plot. So after your evidence, you're going to make sure that your analysis, your full sentence analysis that you complete after the evidence, focuses on where you see that trait, but also it should focus in on how that trait does help to impact the plot as the whole from within the section we read. And then in phase 3 of the reading, you're going to be reading for why the text matters. As you reread the entire section for why the text matters, you're going to actually be looking closely at Uprising, but also how does Uprising differ from the 2 non-fictional texts that you have to read in this excerpt as well. So when referring to that event from the fire. So how does Uprising differ from the non-fictional texts when referring to the particular events mentioned from the fire that are mentioned. I need you to cite evidence to support your response from both. So you want to look for one specific event that you notice that jumps out at you most, that you think you can explain how you see that difference between the real non-fictional account of it listed, as well as where you see it mentioned in the fictional Uprising. And you're going to want to provide evidence for both. As you read through for this, when you make that opening statement that's addressing the question, you are making a claim in the form of an inference, conclusion, or judgment or generalization drawn from the text. From there, you are definitely going to have to support yourself with cited evidence from the passage to support that claim you're making. But the claim statement that you're given, as well as what you're looking for this learning target, is learning target number 9. This is the first time we've covered this year, which is to compare and contrast a fictional portrayal of an event, a historical account, which is the story Uprising with Bella, Jane, and Yetta. That's a fictional story portraying the event, and they're doing that in a way to understand how authors use fiction to explain or alter history. So we have the historical account, that non-fictional historical account mentioned in the 2 excerpts from Flesh and Blood So Cheap and from the Triangle Factory Fire. That's nonfiction that really happened. Those were chronicling the event. Uprising is fiction. So I want you to make some comparisons there as you answer phase 3 today. So go ahead and get working on this close read for Uprising.